Okay, greetings everybody. I'm going to go over in this presentation the Curiosity Quest research assignment and help you understand the direction sheet. Before I do that, I do want to show you on D2L. I'm in week 2, part 2. You might notice that here there are actually 2 versions of the quest directions. This one's just a link to the online Piktochart, and this is where I downloaded the Piktochart so that it's in a Word document. So they are exactly the same thing, just gave you 2 options. Okay, so the Curiosity Quest research assignment is based on the idea that scholars are curious people all through academia. A lot of the reason that we have all the wonderful research that we have today is because someone was curious about something. So one of the things that we want to make sure in freshman composition is that you learn to be a scholar and you learn to question things that you're reading and you're listening to, and that you go check it out. So based on that pedagogical idea, the Curiosity Quest assignment was born. So I'm going to go through and explain to you the different steps of the assignment. So step 1 is to listen to the episodes, which is what you're doing. Every week you will listen to a different episode of Serial. So while you're listening, that means more than just passive listening, more than just, oh, I listened to that in my car on the way to work. It's more than that. You're going to be listening. You have a transcript of the Serial podcast. So the idea is, while it might be okay for you to listen to the podcast in the car, know that you probably will need to listen to the episode again at home while you're reading your transcript, because it's really important that you start to annotate. We want you to record your thoughts in the margins. When you're surprised about something, I want you to write that down. When you have a question about something, either something doesn't make sense or maybe you've never heard of it before, then you should be writing that down. So reactions, questions, thoughts, comments, you should be kind of keeping track of all of that thinking in your transcript through annotation. That is included in listen to episode 1. What we mean is listen, read along, think, and record your thinking in the margins. All of that is entailed in the listening. You should be reading, you should be thinking. So for each episode, make sure that you're annotating the episodes. Okay, also, it's really important. I already mentioned that you should be recording questions. Those questions are going to come back and matter a lot. So make sure you're keeping track of the questions that you have while you're listening to the episode. Okay, then 3 times throughout the semester, you will have this Curiosity Quest assignment to complete. You will do 1 presentation for episodes 1 through 4. So sometime during episodes 1 through 4, you will take one of the questions that you asked in the margins and you will launch your research assignment. So you'll do 1 for episodes 1 through 4, 1 through 5 through 8, and 1 for 9 through 12. And you can see the weeks that those presentations are due. Okay, so for example, when I listened to episode 1, I wanted to know more about Adnan's appeal. Episode 1 talks all about Asia's alibi, and I didn't understand why that wasn't enough to get Adnan a new trial. The fact that Adnan's lawyer never contacted Asia seemed huge to me. So I want to know why the appeal was denied and what happened. So I looked more into that. That was the question that I used to launch my quest. Okay, and just remember that when you post your presentation on week 4, on week 8, and on week 12, your presentation must be posted by Wednesday of that week, and then by Friday you must go in and listen and watch 3 of your classmates' presentations, and you must comment on them. Okay, so once you have picked a question, that launches your quest. So once you have your question, then you're going to look it up. So Google it, and your job is to read between 3 and 5 websites that address your question. Sometimes you'll just read 3 different opinions on your one question, and sometimes you'll read your first website and you'll go, wait a minute, now that I've read that, now my question's changed and I want to know this. And so sometimes your question changes as you go and you end up asking almost 3 different questions as you go through your quest. But sometimes, like I said, a more simplified, not necessarily better, but a more simplified version is where you might just see 3 different opinions on your question. So two ways to think about that. While you're reading the information that answers your question on the websites, take notes, but put them in your own words. We do not want you copying and pasting from the internet sources. That is plagiarism. That is academic dishonesty. You cannot do it. So make sure that you are constantly keeping track of websites you visit and make sure that you are writing notes down in your own words. So again, here's your post-it of what your research should look like. Google your question, read the information on 3 to 5 websites, take notes, and keep track. All right, and you'll see that I've done that. So based on my question about knowing more about Adnan's appeal, these are the websites I went to over here, and this is the information that I learned. You will see that I did change my question as I went through, because once I learned one piece of information, it made me ask a little bit different question. I am going to have a separate presentation of my of a sample quest, and that is this quest that you see here, and I will go through all of that and talk about that when you see the presentation. But for now, this can be even how in your notes you kind of list your research, what you learned, and the website. So again, keep track of the websites and put what you're learning in your own words. Okay. Then the job is to present. So once you've asked your question and you've looked up the answer, then your job is to present that. So you're going to create a PowerPoint, because the PowerPoint, once it's polished, perfect, and complete, will be uploaded to VoiceThread, where you will have a chance to talk over each one of the slides, just like you've seen me do in some of my presentations. So this page actually outlines the slides. You can look at it by number, like slide 1, present your questions. Slide 2, present your findings. You can look at it like that, and you will need at least 1 slide for each one of these sections. But know that when you present your findings, you'll see on my presentation that it actually took me a couple slides to present my information. And know that you also are presenting artifacts. Artifacts you'll see on my presentation. Since I was looking up Adnan's appeal, I actually found the judge's orders online. And so I screenshotted the relevant parts of those appeals, and I put them in my presentation. So that would be example of artifacts. Some students I've seen in the past have kind of combined these two, where as they present their findings, they also present the artifacts that support it. You can do that too. So let's go over the different components of your presentation. First, you'll present your question. You need to present your question and then explain why you picked it. What led you to ask that question? What about Sarah Koenig's podcast made you curious about that? So that's your slide. Second, you'll present your findings. So again, that's where you're going to go up to your notes here, and you're going to go through the websites that you visited and what you learned, and that's here. And again, you can present the artifacts at the same time, or you can have a separate section for artifacts. Then a part that's new, and I will talk about that in my presentation, but you'll see that I don't have necessarily a separate slide for this. You should have one, because I want you to talk about, does your research help you to understand, what does it help you to understand about Adnan's guilt or innocence? Does the information you learned help you feel like he's guilty, or does it help you feel like, oh gosh, he's totally innocent? How are you feeling based on the information that you learned? This should help you understand that the question that you research should help you get to that kind of conclusion. Errors that were made in the past is students asked really general questions, more about the criminal justice system, that the information they learned, while it was interesting and might help you understand the justice system, didn't really help the student understand Adnan's guilt or innocence any better. An example of that, I have had students do quests on, like, how is a jury picked? Now, if they just leave the question there and all they do is go, well, this is how juries are picked, and they just present that information, that really doesn't lead to any information that helps you decide on Adnan's guilt or innocence anymore. But if they stretch that question and they go deeper and they go, well, how was Adnan's jury picked and who was on Adnan's jury? And did that influence the verdict at all? If they did more digging and stretched that question, it might have worked. But since they only stayed on the general process of jury selection, it was not a good quest. So please be careful about that. Next, you need a section for an MLA Works Cited slide. Use the Purdue OWL, the MLA part, to make sure you have correct citations for your websites. You are responsible for doing that. You cannot keep them like this, just as the URL. You cannot do that. That is not correct Works Cited. So you must use the Purdue OWL and look under the MLA, and you're looking for the Works Cited entries. And yes, it's going to be tough, and yes, it's going to take you some time to figure it out, but you are required to have a correct MLA citation for each website that you used. Now, this is a change from when I initially did my first presentation, that the sample I have to show you. So know that mine does not have that in the presentation, and I'll talk about that then again when you see the sample. So it's important you know that you are required to have this. Make sure you have correct MLA Works Cited entries. Errors that students made in this was that they just copied and pasted the link. Or know that in PowerPoint, it can be difficult to format the hanging indent. So some students typed their Works Cited entries in Word and then used the snipping tool and snipped it and pasted it into PowerPoint so that the formatting was preserved. Do what you need to make sure that your MLA Works Cited citations are correct. Finally, once your presentation is perfect and polished and it's exactly the way you want it, then you're going to upload your presentation to VoiceThread. You already have an account. It's very easy. You just click on the Create button, pick your presentation, put it into VoiceThread, and you can talk over each of the slides, just like you've seen done before, and just like you had to do in the 6 Traits crash course. You record the audio the same way. Then, when you're done talking over and presenting each one of your slides, then you will click on Share and copy the link into the D2L discussion board. Just make sure when you do that, that you have the right boxes checked so that when we click on your link, we can actually get into your presentation without having to log in. We should be able to go straight to your presentation. So just make sure you have the box checked that we can view and comment. Now, an interesting thing that you can use on VoiceThread, which you saw me do in the 6 Traits crash course, was you can have students comment. You can actually create slides in your presentation where, let's say you got here and to the guilty or innocent section, and you could actually ask students their opinion. What do you think this information does? And you can have students interact in your presentation. That's one of the great things about VoiceThread, so use it. I think as far as this goes, that's all there is to the Curiosity Quest. Again, you'll do 3 this semester, and here again are the due dates. Please click on the next presentation that'll actually show you. I'll talk you through a sample. Okay, thanks.